outside him, still Mallory. That's for Kinnear, first time in. And
Givens is coming in.
He wasn't born for headlines. He was built for tackles, silence, and sweat. But somewhere between the medals and the mockery, between White Hart Lane and the press room, his name became a punchline. They called him out of touch, laughed when he said insomnia, wrote him off as a relic, but they never asked what the game had already taken from him. Joe Kinnear didn't chase attention. He chased wingers, covered ground, wore the same shirt for a decade, and left the pitch with nothing in the tank and nothing to prove. He won the FA Cup, he conquered Europe, he wore Ireland's badge with pride, and when his playing days ended, he kept giving, on touchlines, in dressing rooms, in jobs nobody else wanted. But when his heart gave out, when his mind began to fade, there was no statue, no honor roll, just silence. This isn't a tale of perfection. It's the legacy of a fighter, of a servant to football, of a man who was never flashy, never political, never protected. This is Joe Kinnear, and now we're saying his name with the respect it always deserved. Subscribe to honor the names they buried in silence, not the polished, not the perfect, but the ones who gave everything, and never asked for applause. Joseph Patrick Kinnear was born on 27 December 1946 in Dublin, Ireland. He didn't grow up around glory, he grew up around grief. His father died when he was a child, and by 8, he'd crossed the Irish Sea, a family packed into silence, landing in Watford with nothing but loss behind them. There were no scouts waiting, no coaches handing him chances, just concrete estates, cheap boots, and too many closed doors. But football found him, or maybe he found it. He played for St. Albans City, tackled like he had something to prove, ran like someone was chasing him. He didn't play for style, he played to stay on the pitch. In 1963, Tottenham called, not for headlines, not for highlight reels. They saw work, and they saw war in his eyes. He joined a squad full of giants: Dave Mackay, Jimmy Greaves, Alan Gilzean, Cliff Jones, Terry Venables. But he didn't flinch. He trained like the shirt didn't belong to him. He listened to Nicholson's silence. He fought for space and earned it. By 1966, he had his debut. West Ham, big lights, bigger pressure. But Kinnear didn't blink. He wasn't the star. But every great team needs a name like his. One that doesn't shine, it holds the line. He didn't ease into the side. He earned his debut in a London derby, Spurs vs West Ham, April 1966. Thrown in without fanfare. Trusted without question. From that moment on, Joe Kinnear didn't let go. He became a fixture at right back. 10 straight seasons. 196 league appearances for Tottenham. Over 250 games in all competitions. You wouldn't see him in the headlines. But his name was always on the team sheet. He marked the best in the country. Kept quiet when others lost their heads, and never stopped running. Not once. In a team bursting with brilliance, Greaves, Gilzean, Chivers, Peters, Kinnear was the anchor, the balance, the man who made space for stars to shine. And when silverware came, he was never just nearby. He was in the thick of it. FA Cup 1967, League Cup 1971 and 1973, UEFA Cup 1972. He played every final like it was a fight for respect. Because for Joe, it always was. He didn't lift trophies for glory. He lifted them because he'd earned them. One slide tackle at a time. This was Joe Kinnear in his prime. No spotlight, no slogans, just a shirt and a job to do. Joe Kinnear never forgot where he came from. He may have grown up in England, but when the call came from Ireland, he didn't hesitate. He made his international debut on 22nd February 1967 in a 2-1 loss to Turkey. Over the next 8 years, Kinnear earned 26 caps for the Republic of Ireland. No goals, no drama, just discipline. He played under the radar, no tournament spotlight, no marketing machine, just green on his back and loyalty in his bones. He stood beside men like Ian Hand, Johnny Giles, and Terry Conroy, players who gave their all, even when results didn't follow. Ireland didn't reach a major tournament in his era, but Joe didn't wear the shirt for tournaments. He wore it for meaning, for bloodline. Every tackle for Ireland came with weight, every clean sheet with pride. He didn't need the crowd to roar, just the silence of a job well done. He wore the green like it was stitched into his skin, and when he left it behind, He left nothing unfinished. By the summer of 1975, his body was saying what his mouth never would. The ankles were slower. The recovery took longer. The years of tackles had taken their toll. Tottenham released him, and for a moment, it felt like the end. But Joe wasn't done just yet. He signed with Brighton and Hove Albion. 3rd division, different pace, smaller spotlight, but he showed up the same way he always had. 16 league games, 1 goal, not glamorous, not historic, but honest. He knew the end was coming. The boots were getting heavier, and the fire, though still burning, flickered differently. So in March 1976, Brighton arranged what Tottenham never did, a proper goodbye. A testimonial match was held at the Goldstone Ground. Brighton vs Tottenham, 23rd of March, 1976. Old teammates returned. Terry Venables, Dave McCoy, Jimmy Greaves. Even Rodney Marsh showed up. There were no speeches, just boots, floodlights, and applause. He walked out one last time, not as a star, but as a man the game had relied on for a decade. And when he walked off, there were no tears. Just nods from men who knew what it meant to last. Joe Kinnear never asked for praise. But that night, he got something better: respect. He disappeared for a while, out of the spotlight, out of the country, coaching in the Gulf, running national teams most never noticed: India, Nepal, Al-Shabaab, and then, in January 1992, he came back. Not to the big stage, but to a club built on chaos. Wimbledon. No one expected much. They were the crazy gang, a squad powered by scraps and spite. Most managers didn't last. Most players ran wild. But Kinnear didn't flinch. He took the job. And then he took control. He made it work. By 1993-94, he'd led Wimbledon to 6th in the Premier League, above Liverpool, above Spurs, above every expectation. And he did it without stars. No big signings, no budget, no backing, just organization, belief, relentless discipline. He turned misfits into machines, turned long balls into results, turned critics into grudging believers. He stayed 7 years, longest serving boss in the club's top-flight history. Took them to Cup semi-finals in 1997, beat Arsenal, beat United, beat everyone they weren't supposed to. But then, in March 1999, the silence came. He collapsed before a match against Sheffield Wednesday. Heart attack. The same heart that had carried him through wars finally gave out. He never returned to the touchline the same way again. He left Wimbledon that summer, not in disgrace, but with his head high. He had dragged them through a golden era and never asked for credit. He disappeared again, heart damaged, reputation quiet, no job offers, no headlines, just silence. But he wasn't done. In February 2001, Joe Kinnear returned, this time at Luton Town, a club on its knees. They were stuck in the 3rd division, forgotten by the top flight. But he didn't see a lost cause. He saw a task, and like always, he rolled up his sleeves. By the end of his first full season, Luton were promoted. No excuses, no stars, just grit, just order. But behind the scenes, the club was breaking. Takeovers, boardroom noise, nothing stable, nothing secure. In May 2003, he walked away. Not because he failed, but because the walls weren't built to hold. Months later, another call. Nottingham Forest, a giant in freefall. He took over in February 2004 with the club dangling above relegation. He steadied them, kept them up that season. But the next year, it unraveled. Heavy losses, no rhythm, the pressure mounted. And in December 2004, he was sacked. Forest would fall to the 3rd tier. And Joe, the man who had outlived the crazy gang, outmanaged expectation, outworked every room, was now watching the game move on. Not because he lost the hunger, but because football had started forgetting how to value men like him. The game had moved on. Managers were younger, smoother, media trained. Joe Kinnear was none of that. But in September 2008, Newcastle United called. Kevin Keegan had walked out. The fans were in revolt. The club needed a stopgap, and Joe, after 4 years in the shadows, said yes. He took over a broken dressing room. No plan, no shape, just pressure, and then came the microphones. In his very first press conference, he exploded. A volley of expletives. A verbal war with reporters, headlines called it a meltdown. Clips went viral. Joe Kinnear was now a punchline. He mispronounced Charles Nzogbia as insomnia, got facts wrong about past signings, stumbled over names, but no one stopped to ask why. Behind the noise, he was trying to hold the club together. He brought in Kevin Nolan, Ryan Taylor, Peter Löwenkrantz, smart signings with bite. But in February 2009, just before a match against West Brom, he collapsed again. His heart, already scarred from Wimbledon, gave him one last warning. He was rushed to hospital, triple bypass surgery. He would never manage in the Premier League again. And just like that, the game let go of him. They remembered the quotes, the stumbles, the gaffes, but they forgot the pressure, the heart attacks, the weight. They forgot the fight behind the noise. In 2013, he came back again, not as a manager, but as director of football at Newcastle United. It was supposed to be quiet, strategic, behind the scenes. But the noise returned. He gave interviews, struggled with names, got transfer details wrong, said he'd signed players he hadn't, called Johan Cabaye Johan Kebab. The press tore him apart. They said he was confused, out of touch, a relic, but what they didn't know, what no one saw, was that something deeper was breaking. Behind the headlines, Joe Kinnear was sick. His mind was slipping. The cracks weren't just public, they were neurological. In 2015, the family confirmed what they already feared: vascular dementia. He faded quietly after that. No more press rooms, no more stadiums, just silence. And in April 2024, at the age of 77, he died. After his death, doctors confirmed what the family suspected: CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, a brain disease caused by repeated blows to the head, caused by years of defending, years of heading the ball, years of sacrifice. His daughter said his career killed him. And still, no Hall of Fame, no honors from the game he gave everything to, just a few lines in the papers, a wreath at a stadium, and silence again. But now, we say his name with weight, with memory, with truth. Joe Kinnear didn't fade. He endured. And in the end, he deserves more than mockery. He deserves to be remembered as he lived, loyal, fearless, and utterly unbreakable. Subscribe if you believe some names should be remembered, not for the noise they made, but for the silence they carried. Because not every legend wore the armband. Some just showed up and never let you down.